Okay, letting some last minute folks in here. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining Blue Stoop Thursdays on the Stoop. I am going to hand it off in just a moment to our host, Toby Tieger. He is a Philadelphia-based playwright and screenwriter who's going to be talking to you about writing a 10-minute play. So, Toby, take it away.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It is so nice to meet all of you. Um, so yes, I am Toby. I have been writing plays for over a decade. I've been writing teleplays and screenplays for about 6 years now. And I am seeing in the chat that a lot of people haven't written plays before, so hopefully I can give something helpful. I do want to say at the outset that nothing that you're going to hear here is going to be like brand new information, but hopefully it helps reframe some things for you. So first off, these sorts of things are incredibly useful. This is a plot structure diagram. These are just two examples that I found on Google. They are very helpful in terms of thinking about stories when you read them. They are less helpful for me personally when it comes to writing a story because it doesn't give you a clear way in. And so one of the reasons that I started trying to understand how narratives work is because I was getting frustrated by the fact that I couldn't seem to make these work for myself. That is not to say that they're not amazing. They really are, but they just don't work as well for me coming into a story. So often for me, the biggest problems are figuring out how to start and then figuring out how to finish. So hopefully that's what this is going to be about. And for that, I'm going to begin by talking about something that's really weird. I'm going to talk about hanging a picture. Everybody on this call, I assume, has hung a painting before. So what are the tools in your toolbox that you would need in order to hang a painting? I figure everyone kind of has the same general answers floating around in their heads. I'm seeing lots of grins. These are my five. So tape measure, level, pencil, hammer, nail. Those are the things that I would think you would want to have for hanging a painting on the wall. Why am I starting here when we're talking about playwriting? When you talk about hanging a picture, you don't require a muse. It is not something where you wait for inspiration to strike. You have tools, you use the tools to do the thing. And also, these are all tools. They are not rules. They are things to help you do a job. And a lot of them are negotiable. You don't necessarily need a level. You don't necessarily need a hammer. You could use a shoe or a rock. I am not including things like a stud finder or a painter's tape or an anchor, which are all things that you could use to put up a painting, but most people don't. All of which is to say, the tools that we're going to be talking about today, they are things that I think are helpful and they are a basic. It doesn't mean that you need all of them necessarily, and it doesn't mean that we're not skipping a couple that you might want. And I just included this because if you were trying to build a house, how many tools would you need in your toolkit? You wouldn't have a toolkit that was big enough. The architect, the construction manager, the carpenter, the electrician, the plumber, you need so many different people. In the same way, when we're talking about a 10-minute play, we're not talking about a full-length play. We're not talking about a full-length movie. We're not talking about any of the longer things. It's not to say that you wouldn't use many of the same tools, but you would need a larger repertoire. Okay, so we are going to be talking about the 5 tools that I use for writing a 10-minute play. And final thing of vamping before we get into it, this is helping you build a compass for yourself. This is not a formula. So for anyone who can't see, this is talking about the pinch point and the pinch point number 2 and the plot point and the moment of truth. And if you've heard of Save the Cat, really useful things in a lot of ways. But what they are doing is they are trying to help you come up with an algorithm. 2 plus blank equals 5, and you're supposed to put in the 3. So we are not going to be talking about how to make something that'll tell you how to do your story from beginning to end. We're more helping you create a compass so that you know how to go east. Okay, getting into it. So, what is drama? Drama is not just characters discussing an issue on stage. Drama is also not just characters that are arguing with each other or bickering with one another, though that does feel dramatic inherently while you're watching it because you're watching these two people go at it. How are we defining drama in this case? You have your protagonist. Your protagonist is the person who you're focused on. Your protagonist has a want. They have an intention. They have a goal. Whatever they want to do, that's the thing that's leading them forward. And on the other side, you have them facing an obstacle or a conflict or a problem or an opposing force, a thing that is stopping them from getting the thing that they want. So you have intention, obstacle. So we're going to do a quick one. One thing is I have too many things open on my screen. Okay. So you can think of this as a clothesline. If you have a character who is in a room with a locked door, um, the character doesn't want to leave the room. If they don't want to leave the room and the door is locked, you don't have drama because they can't get out, but they don't want to. In the same way, if you have a character who wants to leave the room and the door is not locked, you don't have drama because they want to leave the room and then they open the door and they get out. In order to have drama, you have to have the character having a want and an obstacle in the way. You can increase either side of that clothesline. So if you have a character who's in a room with a locked door and they want to get out, and then there's a fire, then they really, really want to get out of the room. Um, at that point, you've increased the tension of the clothesline on the side of their want. If you have a character that's in a room and they find a key and they open the door, and all of a sudden they see that it's bricked in and they really can't get out. Now you've created an issue where they have an obstacle that's stronger in the way of them getting out. So either direction you pull it, you're just pulling that clothesline tighter and tighter. Um, okay. So when it comes to creating drama on stage, it's very difficult to succeed or fail at abstract ideas. That's not to say that you can't talk about abstract ideas. It's just difficult to show them. So you can't succeed in getting back dignity. You cannot succeed in fighting injustice. The one I included here was person A trying to convince person B to let go of their past. How do you prove that the person has let go of their past, other than them saying, "I let go of my past"? So what is the mechanism that's allowing us to get in and talk about these big ideas? And in this case, the mechanism is going to be trying to keep the drama concrete. So instead of person A trying to convince person B to let go of their past, person A is trying to convince person B to throw out the diaries that they've been holding on to since they were 16. If you have a 10-minute and the whole point is Anne wants to get Bert to throw out his diaries, and at the very end, he throws out his diaries, then Anne did what she wanted. And that can then act as a stand-in for you talking about letting go of past. But you do need something concrete on stage that the characters are going to do and want. Okay, so we're talking about tools. There are 5 tools. First 2 are intention and obstacle. Those are your clotheslines. If you don't have those, it's very difficult to create drama. That is not to say that there aren't brilliant playwrights and people who can make stories that do not have one of these things. It's kind of like saying you could hammer in the nail with your shoe. It can happen. It's harder. So in the same way, you're going to probably want to have those, at least as you're starting out, of a character has a want and there's an obstacle in their way. So what's the third tool? The third tool is going to be tactics. So these are the things that the character tries to do to get around the obstacle. So here we have want. We are the character in this situation at the bottom of the screen. Want, intention, obstacle, and then tactics are what you do to get around the obstacle. So the character could be doing anything. They could be fighting somebody. They could be running away. They could be begging. They could be stealing. They could be avoiding. They can be outwit anything that they want to be doing. The tactics that they are using to get around the obstacle are what we're interested in when we're watching a story. So tactics are what a character does to try to get around the obstacle. We see and understand who a character is by the tactics that they choose to use. This is a little bit weird, but try to bear with me. So if you have a story where a person is locked in a small white room and they want to get out, we're back to that same one. And there's one locked door and one locked window. What do they do? I'm sure you can come up with a bunch of different things that they might do. I've come up with a bunch of different things that they might do. Scream for help, pick the lock, try to pick the lock, but not be able to, punch through the window, scream to the people in the street below, break the window, crawl out onto the ledge. They are 2 stories up, they're 10 stories up, whatever they are. Um, so what's interesting about this is whatever tactics they're using is showing us who they are as a person. Because the tactics that I'm going to use to get out of that room and the tactics that you're going to use to get out of that room are going to be very, very different. If you have one of those karate people movies and they're just able to slice down, that's a very different character. And we understand who that person is by the tactics that they're using to get what they want. And when people are talking about show, don't tell, this is effectively, I believe, what they're talking about. This is when you have a character that is showing you who they are, but by what they're trying to do. So, okay. Next slide is going to be a weird one. And so it is specifically about the idea of telling. Gladys, imagine this lady comes out onto the stage and she says, "Hello, my name is Gladys. I am a good person. I want to save an animal shelter that's in my hometown. It's going to be shut down because they've been hemorrhaging money. I plan to do this by euthanizing all the animals. Oh my gosh. Feeding them is so expensive. Please, please, this is obviously 100% fiction. She is saying, when we kill all the animals from the shelter, we will save lots of money. And she hopes to one day save all the animal shelters across the nation. My name is Gladys, and I am a good person. If a character comes out onto the stage and says that, you don't leave saying, boy, she sounds like a really good person. You leave saying, oh my God, what is wrong with this lady? Right? The reason that that's happening is because you have the goal, save the animal shelter. The obstacle, the animal shelters are hemorrhaging money. The tactics that she's planning to use to deal with that problem and save the animal shelter is kill all of the animals. The tactics are showing you who she is. Is that more or less clearish? Or people? Great. Cool. Okay, so those are 3 of our tools. Your intention and your obstacle, these are your clothesline. These are what makes the drama feel like it's dramatic and feel like you're watching a story. The tactics are the thing that's going to help you understand who are the people that you're watching. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? And that's then going to give you a sense of them as people because you can't get inside their minds. And so all you can use are the behaviors that they are exhibiting. So what is next? Stakes. Okay. So stakes. I was in a playwriting group about 8 or 9 years ago. And I was chatting with a woman who had just been on stage. She spent a lot of time talking about steaks. And she was like, "Oh, I want the steaks to be this, and I want this." And so afterwards, I pulled her aside and I said, "Okay, so what do you mean by steaks?" And she just looked at me like I am an idiot. And she's like, "It's what's at stake." And I'm like, that's not quite what I was trying to ask, but okay. And so here's what I mean by stakes. How many people are familiar with Marvel movies as a general thing? People, okay, great. I
I
once
do.
went to a Marvel, yes, great. I once went to a Marvel movie with a friend, and there were aliens that were coming down, and there was explosions, and you have the superheroes, and they are saving the world, and they're all coming together, and there's just it's so loud, and I'm falling asleep. Why am I falling asleep when the stakes are so high that they literally are humanity? Will humanity live or die? That's what's at stake. And yet I'm so bored. What was happening other than the fact that I wasn't really getting into the Marvel stream? What was happening at that point? What was happening was you don't necessarily believe that the thing that's at stake is actually at stake. So if you have Superman hanging from a cliff, you know that Superman's not going to die. Um, that's not what's actually at stake. The audience needs to believe that what is at stake could be lost. Okay. So stakes are what the protagonist will lose if they do not succeed in their intention, or gain if they do succeed in their intention. And we try to keep this as specific and detailed as possible. And the reason that we do that is the more specific and detailed it is, the more people feel it in their guts. Another way to think about this is the why. Why are we supposed to care about the thing that the character cares about? Okay. Okay. So here's a 10-minute concept. You have two neighbors who are arguing. Person A wants to cut down a tree that's on their property. Person B wants to leave the tree up. That's what's at stake is a tree. That's it. How do we deal with the fact that what's at stake doesn't let, now obviously we love trees. I love trees. You should leave trees up. But how do you make the audience feel the emotional impact of the tree? Okay. Person A has a tree pollen allergy. They can't sleep with a tree that's beside their bedroom. Or person B, their spouse planted the tree right before they got divorced. Or even more so, the tree was planted to commemorate the death of person B's child. So now you have a story where person B wants to save the tree because of their dead child, and person A wants to take the tree down because they literally can't sleep at night because the tree is keeping them awake. It's still just a tree, but it's also a memorial to a dead kid. And we know which way we feel about that because obviously one thing is more important than the other. Obviously, we care more about the person who this is the memorial to their child, and person A is about to cut down that memorial. So that's when we're talking about stakes, the more we can get into the why of it, the crux of what is actually at stake for the people, that is going to help us. Everybody doing okay? I'm going really fast. So, yeah.
Yeah, we got some responses in the chat as well.
Oh, awesome. Cool. I can't easily see the responses in the chat. I'm sorry. There's just too many things open on my screen. Sam, is there anything? Should I wait to the end or should I answer
Just
things now?
examples from folks on how to increase the stakes. Nora said the tree has some emotional significance. Cecilia said the tree is sentient.
Exactly. Yes. Cool. Okay. Everyone's on the same page.
You know what
Um,
I was thinking, Mr. Toby? You know,
yes.
I think I know about what the stakes mean, and It reminds me what my imaginaries were going through. Well, I don't think person B doesn't want to take down the tree because it brings back good memories to person B. Or if their great ancestors been sharing the same tree or always hang out with it every day. But person A, sorry, doesn't even have the same feeling like person B because person B needs to be careful who he's with because sometimes relationships are not that easy when it comes to mistakes, like you say, because if he wants to gain her love, trust, nor if he wants to lose her because person A doesn't agree on the things.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's all the different facets that you would potentially put into the 10-minute play as you were writing it. So it's all the little nuances. That's the things that you're looking to include, is all the different little pieces. Okay. Not too much more, I promise. And then we can get into the actual stuff. Okay, so 5 tools, 4 of them have happened already. The intention, the obstacle, those are the clothesline that creates the drama. The tactics, what the character does to try to get around the obstacles. This is what shows us who the character is. The stakes are, why do we as an audience care? And the final one, and this is your level because it's not necessarily needed in a 10-minute, but boy, it's nice if you can do it. Growth or change. So how does the character change over the course of the story? Now, when we talk about a character arc, you talk about a character starting with one set of beliefs and winding up with a different set of beliefs. Often the change isn't about what they are going through and what they have physically or their skills. It's a change of what they believe that they're capable of doing over the course of the story. And how does a character change that? A character changes that when they try a tactic, they try a thing to go around the obstacle, and it goes differently than they expect that it will. And that's when the character changes what they believe. Often not very quickly. Often they have to try it a few different times. So Pixar movies are marvelous at this. Obviously, they are laying it very bare because it is a family film. The idea is how can they be shifted from thinking this to thinking that? So I'm going to give you a example. I'm going to give you a bad example. I like cliches mostly because cliches are helpful for everybody to have the same vocabulary. So we have our movie with the nasty cheerleader who's yelling at the team and she needs them to do things and the team doesn't listen to her and they all walk out, right? That is when she is going to potentially have a shift. And you don't have time in a 10-minute play for a proper character arc because the shift right now what you have is A and B. You have a diametrically opposed thing versus an arc, which is A, B, C, D, E, all the way along, lots of little dots all through. So you have the chance for the character to have a slight shift. You don't have as much chance for the character to have an extreme shift because there's just not time in a 10-minute play. So going to talk briefly about, this was one I literally came up with 10 minutes ago, like an hour ago. Boy introducing his girlfriend to his family. The 10-minute is her trying to impress them. The whole 10 minutes is her being put through the gauntlet to try to win their approval. The intention is impress the parents. The obstacle is that the parents are difficult for her to impress. At the end of the story, the 10-minute, the parents are like, yes, we give our blessing. And then the girl breaks up with the boy because he didn't stick up for her. She has changed over the course of that 10-minute story. She is a different person at the end of the 10 minutes than she was at the beginning in a very small way, because she recognizes that this boyfriend is not really good people. So that is the level of change that you're able to do in a 10-minute comfortably. I do see your hand, Jana. I swear I only have like a couple more left, and then we'll get to the end.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. So, okay. Those are the 5 tools that I think are very useful when it comes to writing a 10-minute play. These are not the tools when it comes to writing a full-length play. Here's a list of other tools that we are not focusing on today. Characters having internal friction. When you have different things that are inside of the character that's rubbing up against themselves, that is what builds interest in a character. When you have questions and mystery, that is what holds the attention of the audience. When you have surprises, that is what creates that feeling of fun for an audience. When you have urgency, when you have a time clock, something needs to happen by this time, that raises the intensity for the audience. There's so many different things that you can do, but all of those things are not as important for a 10-minute. They're great. If you can fit them in, they're great. But I would say that the 5 most important things are intention, obstacle, tactics, stakes, growth. If you look back at a script that you're working on and you're not clear why you can't make it work, chances are one of those 5 things will act as a litmus test for you. Okay, final thing, I think. Oh yeah, I was talking about it doesn't matter. Okay, so I was talking with a couple of friends who run different playwriting festivals. And they were talking about the fact that there are a lot of play concepts that they see again and again and again. This is not a bad thing. The fact that the play you're thinking of writing fits into one of these is not a bad thing. It's just something to note. So the meet cute, the meeting the parents, the dementia, the cancer diagnosis, spies and assassins, strangers meet and come to a new understanding, whatever the things are. Why are we talking about this? So the person who goes to see You've Got Mail in the theater and the person who goes to see Fast and the Furious in the theater are very, very different people. If you know what the concepts are that your short plays are within, you know how the people that are reading them are taking them in when it comes to considering whether to select them for various festivals and things. So a play festival is probably not going to have 3 plays that are about meeting death or traveling into the afterlife. Not saying don't write your play. Write your play. I've read great 10 minutes of literally every single play on this list. I'm just saying what makes your play different from that general overarching subgenre. And so knowing what they are is really helpful for you in knowing what other people are doing so that you can then create something that is slightly different. Okay. And now we are into questions, and here are the links. So this is my website. Again, this is not about me, but gotta include it because I've been to a couple of these and everybody includes them. Newsletter, I really would love it. I would love it if you would fill out the survey that is going to be sent to you from Blue Stoop. I very much want to know what is working, what isn't, whether it's clear, whether I'm going too fast, whether I'm going too slow. What did you find helpful? What could be improved? Okay, and questions. I'm going to stop the share so that I can actually see everybody.
Okay. Toby, we have a request for you to put these links in the chat if that is possible.
Absolutely.
When we're done with questions here, I'm also going to share some links to, some Blue Stoop information, including the survey where you can give feedback on this workshop. And if you guys have questions, you can raise your hand or you can put them in the chat, whatever you are more comfortable with.
Connie.
Okay.
Not hearing you.
Hi,
Sorry.
everyone. I just have a comment. I have laryngitis too, I'm sorry. But
Oh.
all your common concepts, a lot of them were some of my ideas. So I'm so disappointed because I don't like common concepts. And now I gotta think more, you know, or read more. Yeah. So thank you for those common concepts.
I did consider whether to include that because I didn't want anyone to feel like they shouldn't write their play. You should write your play. Those
It's
common
good to
concepts,
know. Yeah.
there are great plays in literally every single one of those. It is just knowing that they exist as what people tend to be reading.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And thank you again to everyone for letting me take your time like this. It's really been lovely. Okay, I'm seeing
I
okay.
think Nora was next, and then
Perfect.
Gianna, Billy, and then Karen.
Thank you, Sam.
Hi, thank you, Toby. I'm struggling to kind of articulate my question, because sometimes I struggle with kind of the growth aspect in my stories, because a lot of the stories that I want to tell are in some way like subverting traditional narratives. And I guess that's probably not something that a lot of people are looking for, because I get a lot of rejections. So I think that's something that I kind of want to work on. But I guess in terms of like the growth or the change, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be growth in like a positive direction. Because when I hear like growth, it's like, oh, she learned a lesson and now she's a better person for it. And I think a lot of the stories that I'm interested in telling are like, she doesn't become a better person. Maybe she, becomes radicalized or something like that. I don't know, like something that is not necessarily like growth, but maybe there does need to be a change in the character. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about like different types of change that the character could go through, maybe?
Absolutely.
I don't know. I'm having a hard time articulating my question, but that's kind of my issue.
I think I'm gonna lob it back and see if I'm getting it right. So growth is a bad word for it, because realistically, growth can be in a negative direction. If you think of it as a binary, where whatever the character was at the beginning, they are not at the end, or whatever the character was not at the beginning, they are at the end. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It can be a small thing. So how would you know that a character has become radicalized? If they take a pamphlet, if they go to a meeting, whatever the thing is, if they start out the play not willing to do that, and at the end of the play, they are willing to do that, then you know that the character has changed. How does the character get from point A to point B? The character gets from point A to point B by the fact that they try their normal tactics to deal with an obstacle, and it doesn't work the way they expect it to. When the situation goes off course from what they want, that's usually when the character is going to start shifting their mindset. Is that sort of answering your question?
Yes, I mean, that's very clear. And I think I just have to, I think maybe in the past, like I've made the change too subtle. And I think I need to work on making that like more clear to the reader or to the audience, like that there actually is a change and not just make it like open to interpretation. Thank you.
Yeah, I do think that there's a danger with all these things to create a cookie cutterness to it. That is a problem with every single one of the things that I listed. They are good as a guide. They are not good as rules. And so that is the one thing that I would say about it. If you are feeling like you want to express something that can't be expressed through these 5 different tools that I'm talking about, then do it. Chances are you're coming up with something that's beautiful. But yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Sam, you had the order. I don't actually. Sorry.
Yes, Gianna is next, then Billy, then Karen.
Perfect.
You know, when you even mentioned something about, well, something about breakup, it just remind me of the story from last week that I did. You see, when I was on a game, I started to create my own story. It was about a princess who was wanting for a prince, but I was trying to arrange her with someone else that is quite the caring person, but mostly a villain, I believe. And she met this prince named Dante. He was from Italy, and I I was wrong about him, but in the morning when I got on, he vanished because she told him the truth about her being arranged with someone who was an android. And I thought he would understand, but eventually, what I heard from his words said, I hopefully, I hope you don't abandon me. But the only real coward who just said the word abandon would be Dante. And he's the real coward who just eventually lied to her about I do too, when she said, I choose you instead, and I love you. But he lied inside of his gut, thinking that she's going to abandon him. But she didn't. All she said was she chose him and not the android. The only reason he never listened is because she thinks that he's going to abandon him with another robot guy, but she didn't. She changed her mind about her arrangement with the android. She talked to him, and the robot was fine about it. And I thought she's going to live happily ever after with him, but sadly, that didn't because it just showed the true colors of his behavior. How he just vanished into thin air without a word, like my friend said. She was just under the weather today. She cried in the ballroom, and the king tried to ask her to dance, but she even said something that reminds me of the Wank singer when the party he did that to Sydney and Scott, like whoopity doo, something like that in a heartbroken way. But it was different. She just
Gianna,
cried.
real quick, I just want to be cognizant of time because we do have a few other people waiting to ask questions. Do you have a particular question about your story, or are you sharing an example of a story? Because that
Um,
does sound like it
um,
would make for a very good play.
I'm sharing it for example of what happened today. I mean, from yesterday.
Okay, well, in that case, I think we're gonna give the opportunity for the next person to ask a question, but thank you for sharing.
Sure, sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, Billy, you're next, and then we had Karen, and then Mark had a question in the chat.
Thank you so much for this workshop. It's really excellent. My question is, are there examples of 10-minute plays that we can read or find that you would recommend as things to read to start writing good examples, if that makes sense? Thank you.
I mean, my first one that comes to mind is All in the Timing. Just because that is kind of the play that everybody knows. All in the Timing is a play that does all of these things. That is a really good question, Billy. Yes. Other 10-minute. I mean, every big playwright has had 10-minute plays. So if you name a playwright that you like, chances are they have had 10-minute plays that were produced somewhere, at least that were written. Mine, I always go back to Shaw because I like Shaw. But truly, Annie Baker, it doesn't matter who the playwrights are. I wish I had a better answer to that right off the top of my head. But what I can do is I can find a list and send it to anyone who's interested afterwards, because certainly there are a lot of 10-minute plays out there that are brilliant. And then when it comes to newer playwrights, if you're not on New Play Exchange, I highly recommend it.
Great, thank
Getting
you very
onto,
much.
yeah. Sorry about that.
Toby, if there's any chance you could put that resource that you just mentioned in the chat as well, that would be
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then I believe Karen was next.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you have a play and you're not sure whether to pull it out like Taffy or to condense it into a 10-minute, how do you know? Like, you have this wonderful material, Homer, but how do you know which way to go?
Yeah, great question. Such a hard one. So thematic statement. Thematic statement is, what is it that you are trying to get the character to shift on? So is the character shifting on a very big thing or a rather small thing? And so it's the same way that for a TV series versus a movie. That one, that's a question of scope. This is too. So if your character is shifting on something that is rather significant and they're going to need multiple tries of poking at the thing before they really get it in their heads, chances are it's a full length. If they can do it in one time, if you can fit it in one time, do it in one time. Like, it will be great. But I'm sorry, that's not amazing, but that's the best I got. Okay.
Awesome. Great questions, guys. And that
What?
dovetails pretty nicely with Mark's question, which was, is there a general guideline for word count or page count for a 10-minute play while we're talking about Hank?
Yeah, 10 pages. A page written is about a minute. That is the general accepted format. So if you can keep it below 10 pages, I highly recommend keeping it below 10 pages. A lot of these, so this is where we get into how much are you expressing something because it's something that you need to express versus how much are you sending something in to various play festivals and things. If you're expressing it because it's something you need to express, it can be any length that you want. If you're trying to get it done by festivals and things, the chances are you're going to probably want to keep it under 10 pages. And yes, that is frustrating, and you can literally spend hours upon hours getting a single line out. It's infuriating, but yeah, that would be my recommendation if you want to be submitting to places.
And then we have a follow-up from Nora. Are there one acts that are longer than 10 minutes, and why is 10 minutes the standard? Yeah.
Great question. There are one acts that are longer than 10 minutes. There aren't as many one act festivals. 10-minute play festivals are a thing. One act play festivals, of course, can be a thing. Often what people do when they're writing one acts is they will put a couple of them together into their own play and make an evening of it that has some sort of thematic hook that is amongst them all. But when it comes to submitting things, it's a lot harder to submit longer works that are not 10 minutes specifically. There are admittedly, so I will say there are some where they say 10 to 15 pages. So I have seen that. It's not that that doesn't happen. Are there 25-minute plays? Absolutely. My gosh, yes. They're just a little bit harder to get produced. And so the question of how much are you hoping to write to be produced versus how much are you hoping to write either as an exercise or as a way for you to express something? Yeah. They're different things. Anyway, yeah. Thanks, Dora. How are we doing? How are folks feeling? There's so many people on this call. My
Yeah,
gosh.
we've still got up to 10 minutes for questions. Asher, are you doing a thumbs up react as in you're doing well, or is
Yes,
that a raised hand for a
this has been
question?
great. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, still got some minutes for extra questions if anyone has. If not, we can move on to sharing information with how you guys can give your feedback.
If not, I will ask you all questions. So I'm used to being more in conversation, and so very much facilitator is the way that I think. One question that I had going into this is, what sorts of things are you all hoping to get, and what is most useful, and how how can information be presented in a way that is helpful? What do people find useful when they're thinking about going into writing plays, and are people wanting to just get to it and be writing things? Did I go very fast? Did I go very slowly? Part of me felt like I was going super fast, and part of me thought that I was doing things that everybody kind of knows. Nora, I see you responding. Thank you. Not here.
Sorry, I thought I would save you and answer the question. I just wanted to say that the way you presented everything was super clear and really easy to understand. And I think although the concepts were like, I don't want to say basic, but kind of like, easy to understand and follow, it's kind of a really nice reminder of, even for people who've been like writing for many years, to go back to kind of those tools. And yeah, I feel like a little bit, I definitely feel like really invigorated, because like just me personally, coming into this, I had a specific story that I have already written. It's written as a short story. And funnily enough, I got like another rejection email from a literary magazine today of that story. So that was like, oh, let me think about this, because when I wrote this story, I said this would make a really great like one-act play, because it's two characters in a single setting and there is like a conflict. And thinking about the endings, like the change. And I think probably, like I said before, that I have to rework that ending to show the change a little bit more. It was probably too subtle in the way that I wrote it. But yeah, really helpful. And I mean, you did go a little fast, but it was easy to follow. Yeah, the information.
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Karen.
I think that you went at a clip to model what a 10-minute play needs to do in 10 minutes. And so therefore, I believe the pacing was good, very, and that the packaged information got relayed in a way that was accessible and quick. Yeah.
Thank you.
Before we
Lovely.
go to Billy, I just noticed that I missed a question in the chat, which was Navneet asked, are there playwright beginner groups? And then we had one more question from Mark, which is there a particular writing program that folks use? Maybe a beginner level one. So beginner playwright groups and writing programs.
So I know that there is a playwriting group in downtown Philly. I believe they meet at Fergie's. I know that they exist. I have only ever attended one meeting, to be honest, but I like them. They're very nice. And they are open and welcoming. There are so many playwriting groups. Literally, if you take any classes, you end up meeting people, and that will give you a playwriting group very, very fast. And then the other question was, programs. realistically, if you when it comes to writing plays, you can write plays on Word. Yes, there is a Final Draft Pro version that like has playwriting. I use it and I like it, but you can just create your plays on Word. Nobody's using that as their metric. So that should not be the thing that stops you.
And then Billy, I believe, had his hand raised as well.
I just wanted to compliment you, Toby. Thank you. This has been an excellent workshop. These basic understandings of how a 10-minute play can work are enormously helpful. I would never have been able to conceptualize a play in this way, but now when I read them and try to write again, I will know exactly what I need to try to do. So thank you. It's really been excellent. Thank you very much.
Great.
I want to say thank
Yeah.
you to Toby. Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand, but if you can give some GB Shaw examples of 10-minute plays, he's my favorite playwright too. Did you see
GB
an
Shaw?
example? Yes.
Oh yeah, there's so many. Ah, geez. I'm going to literally send an entire document is what I'm going to do, because that seems better. The truth of the matter is I've been reading 10-minute plays for so long. George Bernard Shaw is brilliant, and also I don't think I've read his 10-minute plays in the last 5 or 6 years. So I will find which ones I read that I really loved, get back to those, and send those along with all the others. Understood.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Great. And
Thank
I just
you.
want to say once again, like, really, I am so grateful, that you all were here, and that you all took part. I would love to, if you would be willing to fill out the survey that's going to be sent out by Sam, that would be really, really helpful to me in knowing how to move forward. Because obviously I do facilitate a number of different types of workshops of differing lengths, and I want to make sure that what I am expressing is actually useful to people. So that is really helpful if you can find the time to do it. I realize everybody's super busy. Cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Toby, for sharing your presentation, for providing time for everyone to give their questions. If you want to share last minute thoughts, we have, a few minutes left here, but I do want to point out, I just dropped in the chat the link to the feedback form that Toby was talking about, as well as some information about upcoming events at Blue Stoop. We have some last spring classes still coming up, calendar of upcoming events, including our creative co-working free events. You can sign up for the newsletter, and then there's a link in there to support Blue Stoop, because as you know, free session, you can always make a donation to support events like this. And the feedback survey helps not only our wonderful facilitators like Toby, but helps us apply for grants and keep these programs going. So thank you guys all so much for joining tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you, Toby.
Thank you.